Our trip to Europe began a 24-hour journey that started in Austin, then to Minneapolis, then overnight to Paris, France. Then the final flight to Lisbon, Portugal. Lisbon is an Atlantic seaport city famous for their many early explorers who eventually discovered the way around Africa directly to India and to its fabulous spices. Spices were important because Europeans did not believe in bathing after the Black Plague. We visited many UNESCO World Heritage Sites, starting with the Tower of Belem, a fortification that marks the place where many of the navigators started out to begin the Age of Discovery on the Tagus River. Here is buried royalty and Vasco da Gama, the first European to sail directly to India. Lisbon honors its explorers and traders who left Lisbon from this area. One of the king's sons, Henry the Navigator, is credited with encouraging innovation in shipbuilding and determining the location of the ship at sea by the stars. One no longer had to stay within sight of land. The Portuguese sailed and mapped Africa, Asia, and South America from this area of Lisbon. We also walked through the narrow streets of the Moorish Alhambra district with its ancient history and commanding view of the sea. Many of us traveled up the coast about an hour's drive from Lisbon to Sintra. It's a little mountain castle where Portuguese royalty would go to get away from it all. The English poet Lord Byron once called it the most beautiful town in the world. Set in the Sintra Mountains, the royal palace dates back to the Middle Ages and is another UNESCO World Heritage Site. On the fourth day of our trip, we left our hotel and traveled east, past the Christ the King statue in Lisbon. We traveled by many cork tree plantations on the way. We stopped at Evora, another UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the home of perhaps the most unusually decorated chapel on the planet, the Capella dos Ossos. Built in the 1500s by a monk who wanted to remind people of the temporary nature of life by lining the walls of the chapel with human skulls and bones. There is a sign near the front that brings that message home. We, the bones that are here, await yours. The next day found us in Seville, Spain, a very significant city founded by the Romans and developed by the Muslims. It was the capital of Andalusia, and because it is on a navigable river, it was the transatlantic port through which all New World ships sailed, including Christopher Columbus. Because it monopolized international trade, Seville became wealthy, which benefited the arts and construction. The fancy Plaza de España was built in 1929 for a world exhibition and contains an abundance of fancy decoration. The Alcázar in Seville is the oldest currently used palace in Europe. It started out as a Muslim fort and later a Muslim palace built on the site. It's very beautiful and the distinctive detail work amazing. The courtyard of the Maidens was recently used in a Ridley Scott movie, Kingdom of Heaven. You can readily see the opulence and beauty of the golden age of Spanish domination. The Gothic Seville Cathedral of St. Mary of the Sea was started in the early 1500s and is the third largest cathedral in the world. It is opulent with much silver and gold. It is also the burial site of many famous explorers, including Christopher Columbus, who sailed to and from Seville on his 3 voyages to America. The next day, we undertook a bus trip to Granada, but first, we stopped by for lunch at the Strait of Gibraltar, at the mouth of the Mediterranean. At this spot, you can see Africa. The reconquest of Spain was completed by the Catholic monarchs Ferdinand and Isabella in 1492, including taking over the Palace of Alhambra, one of the most famous and ornate landmarks in the world. It was inhabited by the Muslims for over 500 years and is set on a mountaintop surrounded by a forest. It receives nearly 2 million visitors every year. We doubled back to Cordoba, passing many olive tree orchards and ancient castles. We even stopped briefly to see local olive oil products for sale. We soon arrived at Cordoba and the Mezquita, a large medieval Islamic mosque. It is regarded as one of the most accomplished monuments of Moorish architecture. One of its most notable features is its 856 columns of jasper, onyx, marble, and granite. It was converted into a Catholic cathedral in 1226, even though Cordoba once had 700 mosques, 900 public baths, and 70 libraries. It was dark when we arrived in Madrid, Spain's capital city. Our restaurant was several blocks away. Many of us took the excursion to Toledo, a small city about 50 miles south of Madrid. It's famous for its massive Gothic cathedral on top of a cliff. Toledo was important even in Roman times because of its location in central Spain. Jews, Muslims, and Christians got along for centuries before the church started expelling non-Christians, starting in Toledo in 1085. The Christian king and Catholic bishops got along for a while, but eventually the kings left for Madrid in 1561, along with their money, to rule without interference. Toledo is also famous as the home of master sword makers and artists, especially El Greco in his later years. Toledo was also in the Castile and La Mancha region of Spain, famed for Don Quixote, the man of La Mancha. Upon arriving back in Madrid, we shared a really nice paella dinner, followed by churros and hot chocolate. The sights in Madrid start with an early visit to the Palacio Real, the official home of the Spanish monarchy. It is noted because of its large collection of artwork, porcelain, furniture, silverware, and the world's most complete Stradivarius string quartet. Madrid is also famous for its national art museum, the Prado. We were able to walk through with the guide and see many Spanish and other masters. The museum was built upon the collection of the Spanish royal family during their golden age. The next morning saw a flight from Madrid International Airport to Marrakesh. It was uneventful, but Morocco is another world compared to Spain. We made customs and went to the Opera Plaza Hotel in the touristy part of town, but the next day we went to visit some notable landmarks, including the Cordoba minaret, the largest in the city. Later we went into the old city through one of the 19 gates to the Souk Simarine market with its famous wares and spices. Highlights included a Moroccan herb store and the hidden Saadian tombs for Muslim royalty. The road trip the next day was long, but a visit to Casablanca at midday was memorable. We drove through the city, visiting government offices, and later the home of a high government official who was eventually fired for wasting money on a harem and other luxuries. It was a gorgeous view into a fancy Moroccan-style home. famous Rick's Cafe of the movie Casablanca is fictitious, but some enterprising person has built a Rick's Cafe to capitalize on its fame. It's expensive and not always open. It's near the harbor and hard to get into in the first place. The highlight of the day was a visit to the Hassan II Mosque, built on the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. It is the largest mosque in Morocco and the 7th largest in the world. We started the next day on a hillside overlooking the city of Fez. Then it was on to a tour of the old city, including the site of the world's oldest university, Qarawiyyin University, which dates back to the 800s. Then it was on to the old markets of the Medina. It's easy to get lost there, but you will see amazing sights, including the metal workers and the tanners of raw hide in the way that they've been doing it from time immemorial.
Get a lot of money in the work. Somebody who works here for like 15 years, he's not going to do all the job because all of them they look young.
Yeah.
So they are not going to retire here. So after 15 years, since you know all the work, all the
Where that guy's standing, look, he's giving him the bucket and he's just pitching it over. The emptying is that right there.
no. They don't.
The next day found us on the road back to Casablanca through Meknes and Rabat. At Meknes, we visited the immense royal stables, the Moulay Ismail's mausoleum, and the Meknes Mosque. After leaving Meknes, we then headed west to the ocean at Rabat, Morocco's capital city. We got a brief glimpse at the presidential palace before going on to the imposing mausoleum of Mohammed V, the king and his two sons. It's guarded by picturesque soldiers. We had lunch on the Atlantic Ocean at a nice seafood restaurant. Followed by a visit to the Citadel of Cella, an ancient Roman site that is an archaeological treasure with beautifully landscaped gardens that are fun to see. Back in Casablanca, we had our farewell dinner. Some got ready to go back to the United States, others on to Barcelona. On the 16th day of our tour, we boarded a Moroccan airliner in Casablanca, bound for Barcelona, Spain for a 3-night extension. It rained the entire time in Barcelona. Upon arrival, we made a wet night visit to see several samples of the architecture of Antoni Gaudí. On our first full day in Barcelona, we walked in the rainy weather down toward the sea and saw the Barcelona Cathedral. Nearby is the site of the Royal Palace, where Columbus met with Queen Isabella after returning from America. Not far from there is an obelisk that honors Christopher Columbus. That's near the Rambla, the market area. We shopped some, had lunch at a local restaurant. And we saw a Gaudí apartment complex near our hotel before walking back to the hotel. On our last full day, we took a cab to see the Familia Sagrada, Gaudí's most famous and still incomplete cathedral. There was another long line, so we walked to the subway, took a train to the Benedictine Abbey of Santa Maria de Montserrat, a hilltop monastery 50 miles northwest of Barcelona. The main chapel of the abbey had a little concert of young boys while we were there. Lunch there and went to a high-quality little art gallery before heading back to Barcelona. Our trip ended on day 19 with a flight from Barcelona to New York and then on back to Austin.